Hello. Hello.
Hola,
¿Cómo estás?
ok,
¿Tienes sueño?
tengo sueños. Siempre tengo sueño.
Brothers in B'nai Brak.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we're on Samech.
Oh,
Of what? Nun test? No, Nun test
yeah, 60.
60. That's what I'm saying. Samech. Samech. So the Omer Kloim Chamesh Etzrei Amal Akose. The Havamina is that this the Kloim were 15 amas high. Ma Tamud Loimar. Chamesh Amos. Shemisfas Mizbach Ulamala. That means we said the Mizbech is 10 amos. And the kloim were 15 amos, so from the tip of the mizbech to the top was 5 amos. So if it's what does it mean 3 amos high? So it means lishlosh amos misvav soviv ulamala, from the ramp, not the ramp, the soviv where the Kohen walked around 6 amos high. It's 3 amos up to the top of the mizbech. Rabbi Yehuda, who said that the whole height of the mizbech is 3 amos. What does he do with the Gzeir Shava Ravua when we make a Gzeir Shava to the mizbech Haktores that Rabbi Yossi learned that the mizbech was 10 amos high? Ki Gomer Gzeir Shava Berechavu de Gomer. He learned it width-wise, not height-wise. Ul Rabbi Yehuda, how come it's Chazia Kohen? We had a problem that according to Rabbi Yehuda, that the mizbech was 3 amos high, that the Kohen who stands on top and does the avodah, according to him, the walls of the klum are only 5, so the people on the outside are going to be able to see the Kohen. Yeah, they could see the Kohen for his head, but that which he was doing in his hand, the avodah, they couldn't see. Then we had this discussion between Rabbi and Rabbi Yossi whether when Shlomo Melech sanctified the floor, what was that for? Bishlam Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda holds that the mizbech was small, so you needed to sanctify the floor to burn the evorim. Hainu l'siv kiddush hamelech es toche chotzer. El Rabbi Yossi my kiddush. Lahamid ba mizbech. It has to have the kedusha of the Azor in order to put the mizbech there. Bishlam Rabbi Yossi. According to Rabbi Yossi, the Moshe's mizbech was big enough, 5 by 5. Oh, according to Rabbi Yossi, who said that the mizbech of Moshe was 5 by 5, Hainu d'chsiv Katan Mahachil. It's smaller than the mizbech that Shlomo built. El Rabbi Yehuda, that it was 10 amas square. It's not smaller. So what does it mean by cotton? It's not referring, that pasuk is not referring to the mizbech that Moshe built, but rather the one that Shlomo built. And the pasuk ki mizbacha nechoshes cotton me'achil achi kamar. Mizbech avonim sha'asa Shlomo tachas mizbech nechoshes cotton hava. That means the mizbeach of stone that Shlomo Melech built in place of the mizbech hanechoshes, the small one. Now, from where did they learn the Gzeir Shava Ravua? They learn it, the Mizbech HaOla, from the Mizbech HaKtoros in the Heichal. Or do they learn it from the Mizbech that's written about in Yechezkel's time? But my pligi. Mar Savar Don Chutz Michutz. The ones who learn it from Yechezkel, because Yechezkel's talking about the outside Mizbech too. So if you're going to compare apples to apples, You're comparing the outside Mizbech in the time of Yechezkel to the outside Mizbech in the time of Shlomo. They ain't done in chutz mibifnim. And you don't make a Gzera Shava between the external Mizbech and the internal Mizbech. However, Marsav, Rabbi Yossi will hold, Danin Kli Mikli. The Mizbech HaNechoshes is learned from the Mizbech HaKtoros. They're both Kalim that were moved. The Ein Danin Kli Mibinyan. The Mizbech in the time of Yechezkel would be built, and it's not movable like a Mishkan. So it's preferable, according to Rabbi Yossi, to learn it from Kalim that are both transported. Amar Rava. Even though Rabbi Yehuda held that the floor of the Azor was miskadesh, with the same kedusha of the Mizbeach, Moed Rabbi Yehuda bedomim, that you could only burn the emurim there. You couldn't do zrika sadam on the floor, and it would count as zrika sadam. The Tanya, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, on Erev Pesach, they shechted so many korbanos, there was a lot of blood on the floor. And maybe there was some blood that had never been accepted in a kli. So what did they do? They took one cup and they gathered as much blood as they could from the floor, and they poured it on the mizbeach. If one of the kalim that had received the blood had spilled, this was sort of a fail-safe mechanism to make sure that at least some of every korban's blood got sprinkled on the mizbeach.
Ernie, we spoke about this before. How do they collect it from the floor?
You took a cup. It was very thick. There was a lot of blood. They took the cup and they took blood from the floor.
There must have been like a foot of blood.
They were knee deep in blood there.
Oh, okay.
But they didn't pick up all of it. They picked up some.
Some, because it was like representate. It was like there's got to be some of that blood that was in there.
Okay.
It was like a representation that they're taking care of blood that may have spilled.
It wasn't considered shiraim.
No, just the eye. There's only shiraim once you do zrika.
Zrika.
So this might have been blood that was in a kli that dropped before they did the zrika. So by doing kos echad, they figured there's a tarufis of all that blood, so that it's like you have some of it.
But wasn't there a special drainage system or something that the blood ran away?
But we said poikakin. No, when they wanted the blood to remain, they stoppered up the holes. So
Stop it up the holes. Yeah.
We learned that. Now, so if, according to Rabbi Yehuda, the floor of the Azara was sanctified with the same kedusha as the Mizbeach, then why did you have to pick up the blood with a cup and throw it on the Mizbeach? Once it's on the floor, it's as if you sprinkled it on the floor. Maybe v'dilma yishum dekasova shvicha mikocha adam be'inon. Not that you want to pick up blood that may have spilled, but you need zrika with human power. And it's not by picking it up, there's koach adam, and it's not because you're doing it on the Mizbeach. So, imkei nishkele v'nishbach le'aduchte. What do you mean? If what you're saying is correct, let him pick up the blood in the cup and then dump it on the floor again. If you're correct that the Mizbeach, the floor, had the same kedusha as the Mizbeach. And I'll give you another negating proof. V'dilma b'shun debina mitzvah and a muvchar. Really, it's mitzvah and a muvchar to throw on Mizbeach. But really, b'di'evet, you could do it on the floor. So there's no raya one way or the other. Rabbi Elazar. Mizbech shenifkam, you have a mizbech that is missing some of the stones. Ein ochlim begino shir mincha. When the kmitz of a mincha is thrown on the mizbech, the kohanim can eat the remainder of the mincha, but you can't eat it if the mizbech is pogum. Shenema, it said to Aaron ubon of kus mincha v'achlua matzos v'ichlua matzos eitz lamizbech. What do you mean v'chi eitz lamizbech ichlua? Why do you have to eat it near the mizbech? Ella, to teach, it's a halacha. Bizman shu sholem. When can you eat the mincha? When the mizbech is intact. V'lo bizman shu chaser. Fine. Ash kachon shiar mincha. This is a pasuk proof that the mincha, the remainder of a mincha, cannot be eaten unless the mizbech is intact. What about kodshe minolon? How do we know that chatas ashram cannot be eaten if the mizbech is pogum? Talmud Lomar, kodesh kodashim hi. It's a gzeira shava. Everything that is mentioned kodesh kodoshim, the same thing here. What about kodesh kalim inayin? That a shlomim b'chor meiser pesach, you can't eat of the meat if the mizbech is pogum. Amar Abaye Asim Midrasha, the Rav Yosi. The Tanya, Rav Yosi Omer. Shloisha Dvorim Mishum Shloisha Zakenim. He said 3 halachas, name of 3 Zakenim. V'zeh echad mehem. Rabbi Shmuel Omer Yachol Yala Oda Meiser Sheni L'Yushalayim V'Yachlena B'Zman Hazeh. There's a din of Meiser Rishon that 1/10 of your crops you have to give to the Levi. Then there's a din of Meiser Sheni. In the 1st and 2nd and 4th and 5th years of the Shemitah cycle, you give another 10th, that's your own. But you have to bring it up to Yerushalayim and eat it there. Now, Rabbi Shmuel says, I might have thought that Meiser Sheni, even now that the Beis HaMikdash is destroyed, because Rabbi Shmuel lived after the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, should also be brought to Yerushalayim. And dinhu, and it would be logic. Bechor tona bos mokom. A bechor has to be brought to Yerushalayim. To be makrivid as a shlomim to eat it. Umaiser tona bos mokom. And meiser requires bringing it to Yerushalayim. Ma bechor eno ela b'fnei habayis. So a bechor is only brought and eaten in Yerushalayim only when the Beis HaMikdash was existing. Af meiser eno ela b'fnei habayis. But maybe we could push that away. But maybe you can't learn from a Bechor, because the Bechor you needed Zrika Saddam on the Mizbech and Akrovas Seimurim on the Mizbech. Maybe that's why you can't bring it unless the Beis HaMikdash did. But Meiser Sheni, which doesn't have that, maybe you could bring. And for the Gemara, Bikurim Yochichu. Bikurim, there's no blood on the Mizbech, and still, we don't bring Bikurim Bizman Hazeh. There's a special mitzvah by Bikurim, you have to be Meiniach it next to the Mizbech, Lakacha Kohen Atenim Yadecha, V'hini Chol Lifnei Mizbach Hashem Lokecha. So that's why you need the Beis HaMikdash, but maybe Meiser Sheni, you only bring it to Yerushalayim, you don't have to do anything with Mizbech. Talmud Loimar. So we learn a pasuk. Vavesem shama, you shall bring there olosechem uzvachechem, that's masresechem, uvcharos bekarchem v'tzonchem. So the ola, the meiser, and the b'choris are all connected. Mekish, meiser, l'b'chor. Ma b'chor eno b'fnei habayis. A b'chor is not brought to Yerushalayim unless there's Beis HaMikdash. Af meiser eno ela b'fnei habayis. Why do I need a hekesh? V'niyadr dina v'nesi b'binyanav v'ma'atzana shava. Right? Why don't we just say from B'chor and Bikurim as a binyanav? Both of them have in common that they have to be brought to a certain place, and both of them are not brought unless there's a Beis HaMikdash. And through a binyanav, we'll learn to meiser. And for the Gemara, Mishum de'ikla mifrach malat tzad hashavah shebehen, sheken yesh behen tzad mizbeach. both the Bechor and a Bikurim have a certain connection to the Mizbeach. Like we said, the Bikurim have to be placed next to the Mizbeach. Of course, the Bechor is the Zrikas Adam on the Mizbeach, but the Meiser has nothing to do with the Mizbeach. So maybe that's why I can't learn a Binyan Av, and I have to learn it through a Hekesh. So the question is, Mike Sover, what does Rabbi Shmuel hold? Ik Sover, Kedusha Rishona, Kitchen L'Shaisa v'Kitchen L'Asilavo, that the Kedusha that Ezra and the people came back and built by Sheni remains even after the Churban. And therefore you have the ability to build a Mizbeach and to be makriv on it even if there's no bias. So afilu b'chor nami, maybe a b'chor we should also bring bisman hazeh after the Beis HaMikdash is destroyed. So v'ik savar loy kitchel osid level, and if it doesn't have kedusha, afilu b'chor nami tiboy. So there would be a shaila regarding the b'chor as well. If Rashi says iksavar kedusha's bias batal, if there's no kedusha's bias anymore, umaboyle meiser hoil ve'en bias. Your whole question was, what about meiser? It doesn't need bias. Mimi sachal b'Yerushalayim v'nei Hashem karinam be'olo. Is bichlal not having kedusha? Is that considered that the meiser has to be brought lifnei Hashem? Really, we hold that the kedusha of the Beis HaMikdash is not retained. So we don't makriv b'chor, we don't need it. But we're talking about a unique case here. In 70 CE, right before Titus destroyed the Beis HaMikdash, there was a b'chor, and they did the Zrika Saddam before the Churban. The Charva Bais Vadain B'Saro Kayim, and there's still meat. Now, the Iskish B'Sar L'Damo. Ma Damo B'Mizbeach, just like you cannot do the Zrik unless it was a Mizbeach, Av B'Saro cannot be eaten unless there's a Mizbeach. And then Osi Meiser V'Yolef Mi'B'Chor. And comes Meiser, and we learn from a Hekesh, because they're in the same pasuk, Madoch B'Chor, you can't do it without the Mizbeach, you can't do the Meiser. Freik the Gemara v'chidavar alami behekesh chozer alami behekesh. You can't do that by kotshim. So the Gemara answers, but Meiser is not hegdish. Meiser dogan chulinhu. It's not a problem of hegdish where you can't learn a hekesh and it has hekesh. Ha nichlam under basar lamin azli. That's good according to the opinion that which you're being taught about is not kotshim. Elamandar basar malamin azlina. You're teaching from Bechor, and Bechor is Kodshim, you have a problem. You can't learn a Hekesh and another Hekesh, Michael Amemar. So, Dam Ubasar, Chada Milsi. Dam Ubasar are not two different things. They have the same din. So there's only one Hekesh from Bechor L'Maiser. And comes out from the Bechor we learned, when there's no Mizbeach, you don't eat the Bechor. And similar, even if the Mizbeach was just pogum, had something missing, you can't eat kotshim either. Kisolik Ravin, when Ravin came from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael, Amr l'shmaitza kamei. Rav Yirmiyah. They said over this sugya in front of Rav Yirmiyah that kotshim kolim cannot be eaten if the Mizbech is pogum. Omar, Rav Yirmiyah stated, Bavloi tipshoy, these foolish Babylonians, Am told the Yosri Baruch Hashucha Amishmaitz Lemechashcha, because they live in a dark land, it's finster with the Eugen, they say halacha that's also finster from the Eugen. Lo Shmilu Adatanya, haven't you heard of a following Baraisa? B'shasilik masos, when they had the Mishkan in the Midbar, and they were moving the Mishkan from place to place. Kochim nifsolim. You could not eat the kochim meat anymore because the mizbech was not in its proper place. V'zavim and mutzarim mishtachim chutz lemechitza. Zavim and mutzarim had to be outside of Machne Levia, and the mitzora outside of Machne Yisrael. V'tanya idich, b'shnei makomis kochim necholim. You could eat kochim in two places, both when they were traveling and both when they was not traveling. Now, what are we talking about? My love, habe koche kochim. It must be talking about koche kochim that can't be eaten when the mizbech is not in its place. And habe koche kalim. Koche kalim could be eaten even though there's no mizbech. And this is not like a baya. Ravina, we can explain it Aida koche kalim. Both are talking about koche kalim. There's no koche kochim here. The loy kasha harav yishmael harabona, as we'll explain tomorrow. Okay, today is Wednesday. Tomorrow we'll learn at 7 o'clock.
Okay.
From there,
Okay, shkoyach, Ernie.
shkoyach everybody.
Good
Thank
night.
you.